Sometimes the most satisfying of endings are the ones that leave you feeling hauntingly unsettled. Video games are no exception. There's been many a game to bust out a creepy ending that left players with a range of emotions, from discomfort to existential dread, and we adore the crap out of them. So in celebration of these games, we're counting down our picks for the top 10 creepy endings in video games. Also, be warned, there are a ton of spoilers on this list. We are talking about endings after all. So with that in mind, let's jump in. In at number 10, Knuckles Chaotix. Starting off this list with something a bit more tame, Knuckles Chaotix is a bit subtle with its creepy vibes. By the end of the game, if you don't manage to collect all of the Chaos Rings, it's heavily implied that Knuckles and Sonic die. In addition to that, when the credits roll, you get a great visual of Robotnik floating in the sky as the city below him burns. Talk about sinister. Up next, number 9, Pikmin. It's hard to believe that Pikmin could be anything but a happy, feel-good game. You play as Captain Olimar, an alien who is stranded on a planet inhabited by creatures called Pikmin, who help you collect all of the parts you lost when your spaceship crashed. But if you fail to repair your ship, the true motivations of the Pikmin become clear. That they've been waiting for you to fail so that they could turn you into one of them. Except the Pikmin you turn into doesn't look so hot. And at number 8, Home. Home is described as a unique horror adventure set in a beautifully realized pixel world, which is pretty accurate. You follow a man who wakes up in a building with a bummed leg, and you journey your way back home to your house, all while in search of your missing wife. Oh, and you have amnesia, of course. All you have to navigate with is a flashlight, and all else is silent minus the sound design of the world around you. It's incredibly eerie, especially when playing in the dark with the sound up as the game suggests. What makes Home so creepy is that depending on how you navigate your way back to your house and what evidence you find along the way, the assumptions your character makes about what happened changes. Even then, it's still highly subjective and open-ended. Many players have speculated that you were responsible for the deaths of your wife, your co-worker, and the dead women out in the forest, while others think that you may have murdered your wife, but that the other events were just red herrings that you just happened to unearth along the way. And at number 7, The Suffering. In The Suffering, you play as a man named Torque, who was convicted for murdering his wife and kids, who also has amnesia. Throughout the game, you try to escape the prison you're in, since it's now overrun by homicidal monsters. Depending on how you play the game and if you throw all morals to the wind, you'll end up with the bad ending, where you remember and see how you murdered your family, and then you turn yourself into a monster and saunter back into the prison. Yay! Up next, number 6, Fatal Frame 2. The escape ending in Fatal Frame 2 has a good old creepy jump scare. Also known as the lingering scent ending, this one occurs when you choose to not go after your sister Mayu. As you are escaping the village, you hear a voice say, "Are you leaving me again?" Itsuku's voice then warns you not to turn around. But what do? You turn around. And guess what you see?
Mayu.
Sei's ghost coming right at you. You then wake up in a forest, in the same spot where you and Mayu sat at the beginning of the game, except this time, you're alone. And you can hear Mayu vowing to wait for you forever. Dark. And number 5, Condemned Criminal Origins. Condemned is a first-person survival horror game set in a fictional American city, where you play as a crime scene investigator, who has been framed for murder by a serial killer. Meanwhile, you've got to fight off a bunch of psychotic citizens who have been driven to madness by some unknown extraneous force, created by a creature known as the Hate. By the end of the game, you're given an option to choose revenge or compassion, when you discover that the serial killer, who turned out to be your friend's nephew, is still alive in the trunk of your friend's car. If you choose to show him compassion, Leland, the serial killer, commits suicide. And in a cutscene that occurs later on, you go into the restroom of a diner, look into the mirror, and watch as your mouth transforms into one of the Hate's mutations. So I guess you're better off killing him. And at number 4, Outlast 2. In Outlast 2, you play as investigative journalist and cameraman Blake. You and your wife Lynn are headed into a remote county region in Arizona in search of answers about a mysterious murder of a young pregnant woman. But your helicopter crashes, and you end up in the thick of a town consumed by a religious cult in the midst of a conflict with another rival cult. Yeah, that's bad luck. When you wake up from the crash, you realize your wife has gone missing, that the apocalypse is on its way, and you keep having hallucinations about your childhood. A childhood that occurred in a super Catholic school in which one of your friends named Jessica was being molested by a priest, and then died because of said abuse. By the end of the game, you end up finding your wife, who somehow became 9 months pregnant within like a few days' time and is giving birth. She dies and the cult leader slits his own throat, and you discover that all of his followers have committed mass suicide in preparation for the apocalypse. And then you and your newborn are engulfed in light. You then wake up with Jessica, whose neck is fatally bruised, and she promises to never let you go as you begin to pray together. Yeah, so tad uncomfortable there, to say the least. In at number 3, Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 has 6 endings in total, with 2 very absurd ones, but for the purpose of this list, we're gonna talk about the Rebirth ending. James kills Maria, and then he rows a boat with his wife's corpse to the Church of the Rebirth, with the intention of resurrecting Mary by confronting the old gods of Silent Hill. The ending can only be achieved on your second playthrough by obtaining the White Chrism in Blue Creek, the Obsidian Goblet at the Historical Society, the Book of Lost Memories at the Texan gas station, and the book Crimson Ceremony in the reading room of the Lakeview Hotel.
The old gods haven't left this place.
On the flip side of this, there is also a secret dog ending, so the grass is always greener on the other side, I guess.
お前の仕業だったのか
At number 2, DokiDoki Literature Club. DokiDoki Literature Club subverts the visual novel dating sim genre. What appears to be a typical dating sim soon becomes a psychological horror story when, spoilers, one of the girls in the high school literature club that you've joined turns out to be sentient and fully aware of the fact that she's trapped inside a game. She starts manipulating the events and behaviors of the other girls in the club as a means to pursue you, and ultimately pursue happiness, which leads to the suicides of 2 of the members. The game eventually leads you to delete her character file, and things get horrifically existential and dark. The game has various endings depending on what acts you progress to, and all of them are bleak. We recently did a full list on DokiDoki Literature Club, so if this number sparked your interest, I definitely suggest checking that out too. And finally, in at number 1, Limbo. Sometimes simplicity can achieve the most chilling of narratives. Limbo is exactly that. It's been hailed as an example of video games as an art form. Minimal, stark, and morbidly elegant, the game presents itself to you with barely any explanation, except this. Uncertain of his sister's fate, a boy enters Limbo. You play as a small boy in search of his sister, traveling through what appears to be purgatory. This vagueness has led to players speculating and theorizing about the proper interpretation of the game. At the end, after you finish the last puzzle, the boy is thrown through a pane of glass and back into the forest where his journey began. You walk a short distance until you encounter a girl, your sister, who stands up when you approach, but her back is still turned to you, and then all of a sudden the game ends. Then the credits roll and then we come back to see the same frame, except you and your sister are gone. Based off of this positioning and that this is the scene that we return to, take a look at the spots where both the characters stood. Many people assume that this is where the characters died. These spots are now preoccupied by flies. Some see this to mean that perhaps in life, both of the characters fell from the treehouse and died, and that the sister, who has no eyes, is not aware that she is dead. Regardless of how you interpret it, it's safe to say that, it's pretty morbid. Alright, there we have it, friends. Which of these endings freaked you out the most? And which games did we not mention that you think should be on this list? Let us know in those comments below. If you dug this video, please show some love by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. And hey, share it with a friend. And if you want more awesome videos on games, why not check out our most popular uploads playlist that's flashing on your screen right now. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I've been Kelly Pally and this is Top 10 Gaming. Catch you all in the next one.